Welcome back to Issues of Faith. We are talking with the Executive Director of Recovering from Religion, Gayle Jordan. That's an atheist organization, right? And so I wanted to ask some questions about being an atheist. One question that people often ask is, well, then what is the motivation for doing good? You know, what is our role in the world? And why not just make it all about yourself and accumulating as much as you can? There are no consequences after you die. You know, what about that issue?
So I suppose that one could do that. I suppose that one could decide to live a life of hedonism and simply do what one chooses to do without the mandate from the book, so to speak. Most of us who have gone through this have had the moment where we face that. If you take away the book and in the manner that it is the moral guide, so now what are we left with? How do we live our lives? How do we live a life of meaning? How do we live a life of morality? I think it was Penn Jillette who said, without religion, I can do all of the raping and killing and stealing that I want to do. And his response was, I don't want to do any of those things. You know, we have an evolutionary heritage that when we all do better, we all do better. Our tribes thrived whenever we took care of one another and we cared about one another. Whether you choose to access that and you decide to live a life of meaning is a personal choice for you. For me, what drives my life are equal parts reason and compassion, and it's why I choose to do good things, because I can access my empathy, and I know what it feels like when someone's unkind to me or someone is unfair to me, and that gives my life meaning. I want to do good things because I can access my empathy and compassion, and I know what that feels like. I know what it's like when a community cares about one another. I know how much I care about my own children and how I want them to thrive, so that gives my life meaning and it gives my life direction. And so my life is guided by doing all the good I can for as many as I can for as long as I can. It matters to me.
C.S. Lewis writes that there is this sort of inner sort of consciousness that we have of this is right, this is wrong. And you're saying you have that. And he calls that God. You think it's there, but you don't think it's from God.
That's correct. I think that we know that it's not the right thing to do to take the belongings of another person. I don't think that we need a book to tell us that it's not good to do that. And if someone chooses to do pillaging and raping and looting, they're not going to get very far in this country because we have laws against that. So certainly there are other guidelines, but yes, as I said, for me, I do access my own compassion, and I do access my own understanding of what that's like when someone is unfair to me. And in a broader sense, I know what a community is like when people don't care about each other, and I know what a community is like when people do care for one another, and so that gives my life drive and meaning.
Do you worry that there's a moral fabric that kind of falls apart? If we were to do away with churches, obviously there have been some tough things, but there are a lot of good things. Is there are we better off without churches, do you feel like, or is there some sort of moral fabric that falls apart, I guess, without churches?
So I think that what happens is, I think that what we have lost, and what the moral degradation that we hear so much about, is less about because we're taking religion out of things. I think we get further and further from our own humanity. And what I mean by that is, when we don't allow ourselves to be moved by the fact that other people are suffering because that's God's will or that's God's plan, I think we lose something when we do that. I think that we forget it's on us. If we don't accept that we are responsible for our fellow human beings, and we say that's someone else's problem, the poor we'll always have with us, our hearts should be broken by the suffering of our fellow human beings. That's what moves me. That's why I want to make my community better. That's why I want to make my children better. That's why I want to live a life of more meaning. But it has to do with actual human suffering, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Not to get too political, but let's take the issue of not even marriage equality, just the issue that, some people are homosexuals. if that's not causing me personal suffering, it causes me suffering to see that people can't live the lives that they want to live. If the book drives you to say you can't be that way, that causes so much suffering. And I think that we have lost something as a community when we don't allow suffering to be the drive, the suffering or the well-being of our fellow humans. That's what I think needs to be our drive, and not the mandate from many years ago when we didn't know, when we didn't understand the science of what our sexuality was.
There are some churches that accept homosexuals.
Sure.
And so do you think, again, we'd be better off with no churches? Is that?
I think we would be better off with more of the churches that do that kind of thing. I certainly think that churches do good things, feed the hungry and clothe the poor and house the homeless. I think those are all good things. I don't think that we have to have churches in order to do that. That's the most efficient way that we have right now in our society. There are groups of secular people who try to do those good things without the structure of the church. But I think that when those churches that do get that do teach their congregants that teach people to make judgments based on what the book says rather than based on human suffering and people thriving and doing well, I think that's when we get off track.
There was a book I read, The Question of God. It's letters between Freud and C.S. Lewis. They write letters back and forth, and they both have compelling arguments about their side. Freud being an atheist, C.S. Lewis obviously being a Christian. And both sides score points. At the end, it seems to say Freud died depressed and alone, and C.S. Lewis died with hope. That if nothing else, this Christianity led to a happier, more hopeful life, and Freud was more despondent, and you could play that out. Do you think you are in danger of a less happy life? I guess would be the question. Religion certainly gives hope, hope after death, and hope in a lot of different things. You take that away, where does that leave you?
That's also a good question. I think that there is no doubt that religion does give comfort. No one would dispute that. But I also think that we have come to a place to understand that we, as a society, the progress that we make as a society is because we believe more true things. That's how we make progress in treating disease. That's how we make progress in treating our social ills and our inequality. The more things that we believe that are true, the better off we are. It would be a comfort to me if I knew that I could see my children again after we're all gone. That is delightful. I would love for that to be. There is simply no evidence that we survive our own death. Our memories, our personality, everything is in our brain. And when our brain dies, there's no evidence that we survive that. So is it comforting to think that we might all go to Disneyland after we die? Absolutely. I would just love that. Actually, in reality, what I'd like is another turn. I'd like another turn on Earth. It's an awesome moment. The moments of life that are fulfilling and exciting and make life living. I would like another turn doing that. There's no evidence of that. So I think that whether you say it doesn't give us hope, I think the more grounded in reality we are, the better we do as a society. And unfortunately, I think that when we think that this life is nothing compared to what the afterlife is going to be, that's where all the magic happens. I think we become less concerned about some of the things that are unjust about our society. I think we become less concerned about people who suffer here, suffer from hunger, suffer from not having their illnesses treated, when we think, well, it'll get better. It'll get better in the next one. Those of us who don't have that, actually, I find we're more motivated to do good things. We're more motivated to do it. This is all I have. This is the only life that I'm guaranteed to have. And so it matters to me. It matters more to me that we do make sure that our folks have the mental health that they need, that they have the access to health care that they need, that they can live the lives that they feel driven to lead. And so for me, it's more of a hopeful life to know that this is the only life that I have.
That's a fascinating conversation. I wish we had more time. I was going to ask you, you ran for office. I was going to ask you about that, but we're not even going to get into that.
Sure,
but
sure.
Thank you for sharing your point of view.
Thank you
for being here. Thanks to all of you for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.